Hello, this is Dr. Onur, and I'm going to talk about today fundamental concepts of the political thoughts. First of all, I'm going to present you the outline of the chapter in the book called Political Thoughts. And afterwards, we are going to discuss basic concepts of the political thoughts, as well as main methodologies concerning how to approach political thoughts. However, before moving on discussing the basic methodologies of the political thought, we should emphasize one particular point which is quite important in studying political thoughts. We should keep in mind that political thoughts are not descriptive perspectives, but mostly they are normative perspectives. This is to say that political thoughts do not aim to find out how things are, but they attempt to convince us how things ought to be, how things should be. So, keeping in mind this important point while studying political thoughts, we will discuss briefly different perspectives in political thoughts, how to approach those thoughts as a methodology. We will going to discuss about contextual approach, Straussian approach, and the postmodern approach. And following this, we are going to discuss about certain foundational concepts of the political thoughts. Those are power and authority, legitimacy, separation of powers and rule of law, left and right-wing politics and how they are distinctive from each other, and ideology, policy, common goods, and civil society. And lastly, we are going to discuss about the idea of justice, equality, liberty, and deserts, as well as rights. Let's start with the first approach, contextual approach. Although there are quite a number of different perspectives that approach various issues in politics and related topics, there are three different foundational perspectives, in a sense, all of those approaches in political thought. And you can consider these perspectives as a methodology regarding how to approach and discuss various issues in political thought. First perspective, as you can see in the slide as well, contextual approach. The contextual approach mainly emphasizes the need to historicize works of political theory. The aim behind this emphasis of the contextual approach is mostly associated with the significance or importance of the particular historical moment in shaping certain ideas or approaches in political thought. This means that you can only be able to fully understand certain ideas and theories in political thought if you keep in your mind that these ideas or theories have been developed in relation to certain historical moment or processes. The second perspective is a bit different from this contextual approach. It is called the Straussian perspective, Straussian approach. This approach is against to the contextual approach, and it emphasizes that they historicize the ideas of the great thinkers in political thought. Constraints, limits their ability to explain the reality, social reality, as well as we are going to lose, if we historicize those ideas, we are going to lose their significance. So for Straussian perspective, certain political ideas are transcendental ideas that are beyond time and space, and always crucial for all societies. The third perspective is the postmodern perspective. This perspective is based on the criticism of both contextual and Straussian approach. According to the postmodern perspective, political ideas are the outcome or fruits of the certain way of reading the social reality. So if we aim to read and identify the social reality from different perspectives, then what's right and what's wrong can alter, can shift, can change. However, this doesn't mean that the postmodern perspective in political thought denies the social reality. Rather than that, it should be understood that the postmodern perspective emphasizes the significance of reading the social reality from different perspectives. Yeah. Regardless of what kind of approach you embrace it in reading or studying political thoughts, there are certain concepts which are inevitably take your attention while you are studying any political thought. We can actually collect all of those foundational concepts under 5 different clusters of categories. So first of all, we are going to discuss power and authority. As you notice as well, the pursuit of power is a fundamental topic in the history of political thought. People seek for power to achieve certain things they value or they have reason to value in their life. And what they value in their life is usually illustrates their normative perceptions of the good life. So considering that their conceptions of the good life are different than the other people's conceptions of the good life, people can hold contending and conflicting conceptions of the good life. This leads people to seek for power to achieve their normative conceptions of the good life. So it becomes power then becomes fundamental concepts of the political thought. When we talk about authority in political thought, we actually refer to a person, or it can also be an institution that holds the power to frame or to define how things ought to be, how things should be. However, one important characteristic of the term authority is that it emphasizes a particular form of power that is called legitimate power. So the concepts of legitimacy takes us to the second cluster of the foundational concepts in political thought. So when we talk on one's power to have authority, we in a sense stress her or his power to rule the others. Accordingly, in political thought, scholars discuss on one's power to rule the others in a way that emphasizes the legitimacy. Legitimacy can be defined as rightfulness. And on the other hand, when we are talking about the legitimacy, we are not constraining, we are not limiting the term to being legal or being in accordance with the laws. Legitimacy requires people's positive perceptions of the political system and the positive perceptions of the leader as well. The second term is the state. In political thought, certain traditions define the state as an evil form of institution, like liberalism. However, this perception of the state is not always a dominant perspective. Although the term of the state is frequently used in exchange with the government, they refer to different meanings in political thought. In modern terminological framework, government refers to a group of people who hold the authority to steer the state. Another important concept that we shouldn't overlook when we are discussing about the foundational concepts of the political thought, we should point out the separations of powers. There are country-specific differences concerning to the political regimes, but on the other hand, the essential feature of all modern democracies is usually considered as separations of powers. It means that the judiciary, executive power, and legislative power will have the ability to check each other's functions and to provide a balancing mechanism between these powers. This takes us to the fourth concepts under the headings of the second cluster of the foundational concepts, which is the rule of law. With this term, namely the rule of law, we imply that powers of institutions in a state or in a government will be constrained by the rules of the legal arrangements. In a country that's deemed to be democratic, rule of law is the principle that cannot be avoided, that cannot be ignored in any sense. So let's move to the third cluster of the foundational concepts of the political thought. We are going to discuss under this heading ideology and left and right wing politics and how they differ from each other. From general point of view, ideology is used to refer to the material production of ideas. We refer here ideas in a sense that not only signify the social conditions and the experiences, but also promote the interest of certain social groups. So social groups can take different positions in the political spectrum based on their common interest or conflicting interest with other groups. This takes us most common division within the political discussion. This common division is usually known as left and right-wing positions. The origins of the terms of the right and left wing lie in certain historical events such as French Revolution and Industrial Revolution, so forth. Traditionally, the left wing parties, the left wing politics, came to be associated with social change and progress, while the right came to be associated with order and preservation of the prevailing dominant values. Moving to the fourth cluster of the foundational concepts in political thoughts, we are encountering three concepts like policy, common good, and civil society. The term of policy primarily refers to the outcome of the struggle over resource distribution. It means the way that governments addresses the social political problems to achieve their goals. The term of common good, on the other hand, refers to a shared vision of what makes the life good. it can be considered as an answer to the question of what the benefits of society is. The concept of civil society is frequently seen in political thoughts as well. Political philosophers usually refer to vast majority of people as civil society. It's usually referred to a group of people who are not related with the formal relations of political institutions. However, this is usually a flawed understanding of civil society. Civil society, in fact, is the sphere where certain self-interest seeking individuals interact and enter into particular forms of the political relations. Lastly, the last cluster of the foundational concepts in political thought is actually ideals of political thoughts, which are like justice, liberty, equality, human rights, and etc. These concepts actually can be seen as terms that are frequently used, especially when political philosophers talk about their normative perspectives. And the concepts of liberty is usually referred in a sense of being free from coercion or constraint, and it emphasizes respect to the fundamental freedoms of other human beings. For example, their life, freedom from constraint, holding the property, etc., etc. However, the idea of equality is a term that contradicts with the idea of liberty in political thought. We see that the idea of equality in political thought is frequently used as an ideal, whose actualization depends on the interventions to people's liberty in holding property. However, beyond this, the idea of equality is also frequently used to refer people's equality in due process and holding rights. This emphasis of the idea of equality actually takes us to the another concept, which is desert. Desert mainly refers to the deserving or aspiring something, which can be good or bad. All of these concepts, in fact, can be gathered under the headings of what we call justice, or more particularly, social justice. The ideal of justice can be considered as one of the ultimate ideal of all prevailing political thoughts. There are quite a number of different perspectives concerning what is just or what justice is, and we are going to discuss all of those perspectives in detail in the 8th chapter of our book, Political Thought. So the first chapter of the political thought basically about the fundamental concepts of the political thought, like power, authority, separation, common goods, and right-wing, left-wing politics, legitimacy, etc., etc. But this chapter of the book, Political Thought, also provides you quite insightful view concerning to the different approaches of different methodologies concerning how to approach different political ideas in the history of the political thought, which are basically contextual approach, postmodern approach, and Straussian approach in this chapter.